So, hello everyone. It's really nice to see you for the final session of capacity building that we have been organizing in Transform. As you know, we have been learning from the members of the Transform Advisory Board. So this time we are meeting with Anna Meroni. I know you have already, well, I think all of you, yes, have met her in Barcelona. So I won't do a long introduction, but just as a reminder, so Anna is based in Milan, in Italy. So she is a full professor of design at the School of Design of the Politecnico di Milano. And she has quite a lot of experience in citizen engagement. She has, so her focus is particularly on various approaches to social innovation and co-designing. I will call it co-designing possible futures. I hope it summarizes well what you do. Anna, well, we have been in touch. We know each other since quite some time. She has also been involved in a quite well-known European project. I will just mention this because it's the one I know best, but Anna, don't hesitate to mention more. It's called Simulact. You probably heard about it. It was a Horizon 2020 project that was quite pioneering in terms of consulting citizens around various topics. And it was one of those projects that the Commission funded where the commitment on the way the outcomes of citizen consultation should be used was really strong. So it was a really interesting project in this sense, with several locations all over Europe running some very, very interesting citizen consultations. And this is, the one I'm more familiar with, but Anna has also been involved in many other projects, European projects, but also she works on citizen engagement activities also that are not exclusively linked to EU projects. So we thought that it would be interesting for us to hear from her experience today. So we will follow the typical format that we have been using so far. We will first listen to Anna share her experience with us, and then there will be plenty of time to exchange, ask questions, and learn from each other. We plan to have the session last around an hour and a half, so we should be done by 11:30. So Anna, I'm going to hand over to you. I guess I should, do you have slides? Sorry, I forgot to ask. Yes, so let me just allow you to.
But I can share, I think.
Screen. Now you should be able to, just in case. Okay, in the meantime, I see more people connecting.
So thank you. Thank you, Marzia, for the introduction. I promise I'll be short for this presentation. I have decided to skip Simulact project because it's in the background, you will see. But instead, to focus my short presentation, I hope it's going to be short. It depends on how long we want to see some details of the things. Anyway. On other projects that they all have to deal with co-design. And because I really would like to focus this presentation on a title that I decided is co-design by designers. Today, co-design is a very popular topic, is a very popular subject. Everybody claims to do co-design, which is in fact true in many cases, but there are several ways to do that. We don't say at all that it's only an activity that the designers can do, but or let's say can organize, but let's say that we believe there is a way. And after a few years of experience, including the one with Simulact, with my team, we started to really conceptualize the work done in order to be more also to have a better understanding of the different possibilities and ways of using it. So let me share, because I think it's better if we can see together. Let's see if there is optimism. Okay. All right. Can you see?
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
Perfect.
Because Zoom asked me for a strange plugin that anyway.
So far, so good. Let's
so far, so good. Beautiful. So, all right. Well, first of all, just a quick remark that I am, as Marzia said, I'm from Politecnico. A few years ago, no, not that few, now more than 10 years ago, we have been co-founders of an international network, which is DISIS. And so in Milano, in Politecnico di Milano, we have the DISIS Lab, which is part of a much wider network of universities across the planet. Today, there are more than 50 design universities that work with design for social innovation and sustainability. So let's say that we were the initiators in Italy, and we in our way of doing, we combine strategic and systemic approach to design. So we try to keep together different ways of using design to do something that we call make things happen. So we try to support with design tools, communities, companies, organizations to make things happen. So to turn ideas, to generate ideas, and to turn ideas into something out there working. We call it community-centered design because we believe that you are probably familiar with an approach of design, which is the user-centered, which is very much based on understanding a user. Here, the issue is understanding often a community, which is an entity pretty complex with diverse drivers, diverse agendas, diverse motivations. So something which is not at all necessarily cohesive, but it might be instead conflicting. So centering design on this kind of entities, it's a way to deal with the complexity also of different interests within groups, sharing a place, sharing a mission, sharing an activity. And so we, in the course of the last 10 years, a little bit more, maybe we are 15 years, let's say, we went through a number of projects, which are not only research projects, but they are applied. So we have been doing a lot of work, and some of them I'm gonna show you now. Where basically co-design has been always placed in the center. This was this was a European funded project that was actually one of the first adopting again co-design as an approach to designing the future. Here we had the ambition of designing sustainable lifestyle in 2050, and the project was 2010, so really 40 years ahead. And then Simulacta that Marzia mentioned, together with a huge network of other partners. Another one that was focused instead of incubating social innovation, and this is something we do very much still today, and at the local and international level. And so this is a case of more local projects on incubation of social innovation. We work very much with also traditional topics of social innovation, such as immigration and whatever. This is one of the last projects we are running. It is here in Milan. It is still in place. It's a long one, 4 years, in which we are in fact collaborating into the scouting and supporting of social innovators in some neighborhoods of the city. So it's a project really aiming at making start new initiatives with a social impact in mainly the peripheries of the city of Milan. The title is La Scuola dei Quartieri, which is basically the school of the neighborhoods. This to signify, to mean that there is a double learning of what comes from the neighborhoods and instead the more traditional teaching of acceleration methodology to these groups of innovators. Well, this is to say that co-design for us, it's a very long story. And so I just want to focus on some technical parts and to show how we try to apply this methodology of co-design to different fields and cases. So basically, this is also what we teach to our students. Design is an ancillary discipline. Is a discipline that takes a lot from other. For instance, there is a lot from ethnography. Ethnography is a source of tools and methodologies for design, and to better understand the user, to better understand the context, to better understand the story and the condition of a community. On the other side, co-design, we will see what is more in detail, is a way to work with the user, with the community, and with these entities. So the two things in our way of working are very much connected, and very often one slowly during the course of a project becomes the other, in the sense that ethnography is very much concerned with understanding an existing situation, while co-design is understanding a future situation. But in both cases, we have this close contact with users and communities and a close interaction, and the methodology you will see is often similar tools are used for both phases. So co-design basically is a design process structured with the users and other stakeholders. This I think is very well known. It requires iteration, so very often it is not enough just one workshop or one meeting, but it is needed to have more than one in order to come to an idea. It's part of the wider, let's say, literature and field of participatory design, which has a long story, in particular in the Scandinavian countries, and which is also very strong political value. Let's assume that when we talk about co-design as designers, we assume to be expert in something, very often more in the process than in a specific field. The value of involving the citizens, the users, the community, is that they are very often expert of the problem. So they are expert of their experience in a certain situation. That's why we can learn a lot. But what you can learn is very often related to the problem. So it's very often related to the condition more than the possible solution. So co-design is a very good way to understand more and sometimes also to have a good idea together. But let's say that from an expert point of view, we are used to consider a successful co-design interaction, the one that help us understanding better the problems, the situation, rather than the possible solution. So we still believe there is an expertise in experts, in fact, in professionals, that is crucial when you want to come to a solution that is is such. Again, a little bit of theory just to understand what can be taken the best from this approach, that co-design is a combination of two different approaches. So as we said, the participatory one, which is very political and also related with democracy, with value, with ethics, and the user-centered, which is more from the United States as an history, let's say, which instead is more related to the idea of understanding the needs, sometimes also with a market perspective. The two things go together. That's why co-design can be applied to several contexts. So not only users, but in fact citizens. And here we have all the issue of responsible research and innovation. And so it's a way to manifest a democratic approach to innovation. And also it's a way to express a democracy in itself. So definitely today, democracies are also use co-design also to express their very nature of involving the citizens in taking decisions, whatever decision it is. But then is, as we said, also a very useful tool when you work with a community. So with a context in which you have several subjects which have different agendas, which have different needs, which have different interests, but they have to pursue a common path toward an innovation. So they have to pursue to achieve a common result, which is in the interest of all of them. So in this case, co-designing, and so putting around the same table very diverse entities is a good way to work with this kind of projects. And then there is, this is a little bit more from the American tradition, but is a very, very enlightening concept, the one of using sacrificial concepts when you work with co-design. What is a sacrificial concept? It's a definition that I like very much, because as a professional, as a designer professional, you may love very much your idea. And so when you discuss an initial concept and an initial idea with someone, including the user, you might feel like, okay, I want to protect it. You take a kind of protective attitude. Instead, you have to be open to sacrifice your idea. So the best co-design workshops are those in which an expert, so he or she is likely to be a designer, puts on the table a number of provocations, which are sacrificial concepts. So concepts that are good enough to stimulate a conversation, even sometimes provoking reactions, and so ready to be changed. In this kind of situation, the co-design activities are likely to be pretty effective, because they really help making emerge also the critical issues. And so a good sacrificial concept is something that really ignites a conversation that is actually useful. So to conclude, co-design may be useful to do several things: detecting need, getting insights, generating ideas, informing sometimes, engaging, so taking someone on board, which means having him or her then part of the problem rather than part of the solution rather than part of the problem, and so more in general involving stakeholders. You are also probably familiar with this kind of visualization, which is the pretty famous double diamond methodology, that is one of the most well-known methodology of design thinking, which in fact move from a problem to a solution, going through different phases of let's say, discovering, so diverging, so try to open as much as possible your mind and your attitude, and then defining, so selecting something, and then developing, so once again considering different possibilities for a solution, then delivering, which means making something finally concrete and detailed. So this kind of methodology, which is very generic, but actually useful, because you train yourself not to close down, to narrow down too much the problem, but to you learn opening your mind to different possibilities, is also a good way to understand how you can use co-design in the different phases of a design project. In fact, when you are from, let's say, you see that on the one side we have a topic-driven and a concept-driven on the other. What does it mean? That when you have a topic, no, sorry, here we have, when you have a topic, you have a problem, you have a situation that has to be investigated, and is still very broad, very, yes, very big. I don't know. It could be healthy food habits. Healthy food habits for kids under, I don't know, 10 years old. This is, of course, defined. It's a topic, but it's still very, very broad. And yes, of course, you can co-design also with such a broad, let's say, a topic in your mind. But then the more the idea evolves, the more you go towards at least one concept or more than one concept. And so from having the idea of healthy food habits for kids, you start to have clearer ideas of a specific solution. So the food, the organic food in the canteen of the school with mainly vegetables and fruit. And so the more you go towards a concept, the more your idea is refined, but you still can use co-design not only to refine, but also to rediscuss in some moment your idea. So if we look at this horizontal axis, let's say that is the one of the development of the solution from one problem to a solution. In fact, it can be more topic-driven or concept-driven. So a co-design activity may be more related to explore big issues still very wide and open, or to focusing on more specific concepts that has to be deepened somehow or enriched. But this is not the only two variables that can influence the way in which you will do co-design, but there are also other two variables in our experience, and they are related to what we call the style of guidance. So the way in which you, as an expert or an expert, let's say, operate to either steer or facilitate the activities. What's the difference? Facilitation is the typical attitude in which you build on the techniques of active listening. So you don't talk that much, you don't present that much, but you let people, or let's say stakeholders, talk. On the other side, instead, the steering is more provoking. So putting something on the table and looking and in a way managing the reaction to what you have on the table. So something thought-provoking. If you combine this, I guess you understand the game. If you combine this, you may have different ways of doing co-design, which of course depends on the design subject matter, so the different phases and the different phases of development of an idea and the different style of guidance. And according to the condition, the problem, what you want to achieve, what you want to discover, you may decide to take one posture or the other. And so this is a typical way of doing scenarios. Also, you can, these are ways to describe what may happen in these quadrants. And so when you are, the more you are on the left, the more you are discovering, the more you are imagining options in different ways. And the more you go right, the more you enrich, expand, and envision existing options. So this is a little bit of a behind-the-scene technique. Then how you put things into play. Basically, we use a concept from sociology, which is the one of boundary objects. Boundary objects are objects in sociology, in fact, that, as you can read, cross the boundaries of different social worlds and communities, and so help understanding each other. So they facilitate interaction, translation, and coherence between different worldviews. Well, boundary objects in design are normally these kind of things. And in fact, I like to go back to the idea of sacrificial concept that I mentioned before, because they are something that, in fact, are put on the table, help interacting with concepts, with ideas, but are open to be changed. And so these boundary objects are, in fact, what a designer designs to organize a co-design session. So they help focusing the reflection, they help visualizing the different possibility, and also they help presenting the different alternatives, if any, for a certain function, quality, or whatever. So I will skip this, maybe too technical. Anyway, this is the point. So I may have objects which are like cards, which help, for instance, understanding different issues. When I have a very open situation, so I have a very open topic, such as the health, healthy nutrition for kids, I can explore different possibilities. Or I can have something more detailed, which is kind of a pre-prototype or a prototype that instead help visualizing a little bit what is the subject of the work. And so let's use this picture that you will see now is part of a project to understand exactly what boundary objects are. So they are a combination of things, such as this, that was a simulation of a food box for a weekly scheme. And these were kind of forms that were used to inquire people about this possible solution, so this food box scheme. And the two, of course, go together. Let's see how they work in this project. This project is something that I mention very often because it is really around now 13, 14, started 13, 12 years ago. And it was the basis for a huge number of other things happening. It was a project that we ran together with Slow Food and the University of Gastronomic Science in Milan. The title is Nutrire Milano, Feed in Milan. And the idea was to design and implement by prototyping a number of short food chain solutions in the city. So you probably remember that in 2015, we were supposed to host, and so we did, the International Expo in Milan. And all the expo was about food and sustainable food. And so the idea was, okay, let's try to walk the talk. And so to be ready by 2015 with an actual number of short food chain solution in the city of Milan. And it was really not the time. So we really had a lot to do in 2009, 2010 to make something happen in 5 years. And so we started to work with Slow Food. We had very generous funds fund from Fondazione Cariplo, which is a bank foundation in Milan, and we started to do several things, including mapping the let's say the nearby network of farmers, which are many around the city of Milan, which were intended to be the starting point for a completely new family of services. Here you can see a small video. Let's see if I can. So this video was a way, a sort of advertisement to show what we wanted to do. So the idea was, and believe me, 10 years ago, it was not that common to talk about zero food mile. So the idea was really putting together consumers on the one side and farmers and producers on the other, at the shortest possible distance, and to do it in several ways, not only one service, but many. So this project was pretty ambitious and started with the idea, in fact, of connecting mainly this area of the agricultural park in the south of Milan with the city of Milan. So from the Dome to this part, there are less than 20 kilometers, so it's very, very close. And so it started as a very collaborative project. The first things we did, and we prototyped it very, very quick, was a farmer's market. At that time, Milano had very few farmers market, very small, with 5 to 10 stores of farmers. Instead, here we wanted to do something much bigger. And so we started to design this market as a service, not only food, but a big variety and a diversity, so that it was possible to really have the full food shopping, but also with tables and places where people can enjoy eating together, can attend the workshops, can do things and learn about good food. And so this format of a market became the format of the Mercati della Terra, which is the market that is still now running every Saturday in Milan. But this was the beginning of the story, and it was pretty interesting. Among the different stalls of the market, there was one that was a co-design stall that we used to think about other services. So the farmers market was the first of a number, and we started to see, okay, let's use the place in the market as a place to discuss with visitors, but also with farmers, new things to do. And one of so this was a stall, a sharing idea, they're sharing stalls. And one of the ideas that we discussed was the one of the food box. So the idea of sending every week a box of fresh food from the farmer to the house. But not only, here you see several things that were done involving the students. In our case, that was a very very good and very, let's say, effective also for their education. And so one of the things that we did is here you see that the idea was began in 2011, was in fact prototyping this. Sorry, I don't know if I went back by mistake. Yes, so prototyping this farmer's food box, designing and prototyping the farmer's food box. So an idea of delivering weekly from different farmers to different users and consumers according to a proximity of the neighborhoods and the farmers. Here you see some of the co-design activity that we did. First, in the beginning, to really explore the interest of the solution, And then we also started to prototyping. In fact, prototyping, so making something for real, is another evolution of co-design in which you actually involve users, suppliers, producers to co-produce something that had been co-designed. And so we did twice a prototype of 2 months. And so to see also how was working the solution. And while in the first solution, we in a way worked with door-to-door delivery, let's say, not door delivery. The second prototyping was instead done making the small clusters of users. So the idea changed a lot. We also understood, here you can see that we had several issues and limitations. And so we understood that we had to cluster in a way the different users according to their proximity. Also, in order to facilitate let's say the collection of the food. So we decided to deliver the food not at home, but in proximity places such as bars, restaurants, shops, even offices where people actually could be more could be present when the delivery comes. And so we did it in the office, we did it in different bars, and so we did this second experimentation. So this experimentation was also the beginning of a project of other projects, and one of them is today pretty successful in Italy, which is Cortiglia. The people that are now delivering Cortiglia, participating in Cortiglia, were initially part of this experimentation. And so you see what was what was done. As I said, the market still continue, and we are still working with the farmers. And so there are things that will come in the future. Let's quickly see another couple of projects. And so I assume that we can have questions in the end, so I continue. But if you want to say something, please. Let me know it. So let's see another couple of projects to show how different can be the approach to co-design. This is another one that was a kind of milestone in the development of our group, and it was Cittadini Creativi. Cittadini Creativi was an initiative of a colleague of mine that at that time was my PhD student, so I was her tutor, and she's Daniela Selloni. And she started to work with a group of citizens of a certain neighborhood of the city, by chance, not by chance, but the same neighborhood where we were organizing the market, the food market. So the idea was really to explore the different possibilities connected to the population and the community of that neighborhood. But, well, she decided to work with this group of citizens to design future services for the neighborhood. So it was 2013. It was the activity was based in Cascina Cuccagna. Cascina Cuccagna is a symbolic place of Milanese activism. So it's an old farmhouse, which is also very nice, and has been that was recovered by citizens in the association to become a public space. This is it. So it's also a very strange situation where we have this old building or today nested into the city. And so the project lasted 3 months, and there were several different issues explored with the citizens through each of them through 3 sessions, different sessions, a warm-up one, a generative, and a prototyping. So the warm-up was really, if the topic was food, okay, what are we talking about? Case studies, other ideas, introducing the topic in a way. Generative session was, okay, now let's step into idea generation, and let's try to see what can be done in our neighborhood. And then prototyping was try to move to the real ground, and so try to understand who might do something, or who might have done something, and also where. We have been working around 4 main areas: food services, sharing services, cultural services, and administrative and legal services. And these are some of the pictures. So you see that all these things are all kinds of boundary objects that were designed to stimulate this conversation. Some of them are simply posters, but simple, but with a room for adding comments and additional information by the participants. And some of them are instead pretty complex. Here I always like this one, that the idea was creating a network, food network in the neighborhood called Face Cook. And to simulate this network, we created this fake computer. So to really create a fiction, a complete fiction, but to make this fiction become also easier to be discussed. So the more something appears finished, the less people are willing to add comments or to make changes. The more you present something which is still to be finished, the more you have people actually participating. So this way of creating mock-ups of this kind is also a way to facilitate for people stepping into the discussion and the solution. And so we had a final presentation with also the counselor, and it was really a successful moment in which many things then came later. Some of the services have been done actually, and so they have remained. I think they are still, some of them, part of the offering of this place, Cascina Cuccagna. Here we go. Finally, a couple of other projects. This is one of the last one that we think is another milestone in our way of working, and also some project from which we learn a lot. The project is called Rivaluta Rivalta. Rivalta is a neighborhood of the city of Reggio Emilia. It's a huge agricultural area today, which, thanks to some money coming from the ministry in 2018, had the chance to be turned into a park. But it's not just an agricultural area. So it is today an agricultural area, but it used to be a ducal palace with still a small part of the palace in place, while the biggest part has been destroyed over the years, over the centuries. So basically, the municipality of Reggio Emilia has this huge fund from the Ducato Estense project that was an initiative of the Ministry of the Culture to restore this old area and putting it back at the disposal of the citizens as a park, as a urban park. Is a little bit out of the center of Reggio Emilia, but not that far. So the idea was to start to create a process of strategic co-design of future scenarios, and to organize in parallel to this an international competition for architects and landscape designers to turn these scenarios into a solution. And so we were asked to do this initial part of co-design and to then exchange with the winners of the international competition. So this is Reggio Emilia. Here is the park that you can see also visually is very, very big. And there is still this shape that resembles the old Ducal Palace that was a very, very huge palace. So the work that we organized was in 4 phases, from understanding, so interviews, and here we go back to the ethnographic part, understanding, using tools of active listening, observing, getting immersed in a place, and on the other, and then come to the scenario development and the convergence with the architects. I will make a long story short, but again, we used for the different parts of this process, we used different tools. This is an image of the workshops with the stakeholders. We had like 5, if I remember well, 5 tables of debate with different stakeholders, not citizens, but stakeholders in a way representing different entities that with the municipality, we decided to involve in this scenario co-creation. So here you see the field as it was in July, if I remember well, 2018. Here is the mock-up that we created to help this course. Here, then you can see on the background the map that we use to help positioning different options already pre-defined together with the administration, so different directions. And so we designed these cards that were igniting a little bit of thought about the future, but according to some direction that were set already with the municipality. So these are images of the 6 scenarios that came out from the first phase of work with stakeholders. And they are so different things, but all that envision different ways of materialize the place. And then these are the 2 final scenarios that came out from the exchange with the architect that won the competition. Because the idea is now to transform this into, so here are the 6 scenarios initially described. These scenarios were conveyed into the project brief of the architect. So the winning architect, when the winning studio was selected in this international competition, we started to discuss these 6 scenarios with them, and we came out with 2, which have some overlapping part, which are based on future services, but which can be the let's say the starting point for also the design of the architecture and landscape. And so they are the Parco del Benessere, the Wellbeing Park, and the Habitat Park, which are in fact now materialized into a project that is now under construction in the place. This project is, of course, has some material definition. So there are spaces, there is a design, but this design is still open to set these 2 options, let's say. And the next step of the project, that of course had some problem due to the COVID, but is now running well. The next step will be going back to the stakeholders to co-design the co-production of the different services. So really to open again a table of co-design to understand what exactly is gonna will be done there, by whom, and with what approach and strategy. Last, just to say that this kind of approach is useful also for not only for public administration and for the so-called commons and public goods, but also for companies. In the last couple of years, we have been working a lot with an extended design, co-design methodology with a company that I can mention, but you can probably understand, which is a leader, a European leader in outdoor sports. And this company so produce shoes, clothing, sport clothing, and so on and so forth. And the idea was to move from product to services introducing a number of services to be delivered from the different shops, and not only. So to combine the selling of the product with the selling of services, with the idea of increasing the sustainability of the whole offering. And so it's this part, they see, this company sees services as a fundamental part of the company strategy towards sustainability. It's a pretty well-known company also for this. So we refined our methodology once again, and we came out with a 3 phases project to start, because most of all there was an issue of introducing services and a kind of service mentality into a manufacturing company, which is an issue because it's not it's a completely different way of thinking to what you offer to your client. And so there was a big part of initiation of scoping, of research and benchmarking, and then we experimented the service co-creation involving different departments of the company, different units, and also users, future users of the services. The whole work was done, almost the whole work was done online. And in the beginning because of COVID, and then because it was it has become useful at the end. And and so the beginning was really scoping. I will go very quick. And so trying to understand the project questions, so the related design issues, the expected outcomes, because it was not so obvious to understand what they wanted to see as a result, as an achievement of this project. So together we define the project brief in a way. We started to understand what was around, so the benchmarking, the customer needs, the identify gaps and problems. And so we did a more traditional work with the benchmarking, but also several interviews to people that were likely to be the future users. And so we created this persona. Persona are fictional characters built on real interviews and people. We organized the different insights from the interviews in different ways. So these interviews were part of the ethnographic beginning of the story, let's say. We, of course, collected also case studies, so let's say the competitors. And we turn all these insights from interviews and case studies into design opportunities for the company. Then we have been able to step into the concept generation. So here from the brief, the initial hypothesis, we step into the concept generation with a pretty big community of people that were mainly inside the company, but also some stakeholder and user. We visualized, we did not come with the blank sheet at all, but as we are designers, we started to create 7 different scenarios which were generated from the insights, and we use these scenarios as sacrificial concepts, in fact, so as seeds for debate that was already oriented towards some possible solutions. These are images of the boards that were created and were discussed during, I think, I don't remember if 2 or 3 different meetings. And they were absolutely rich. The people participating was really many. I go fast here. And for the main services, those which were considered to be the most interesting one for the company, we started to understand the offering map and a first draft of the different user journeys, so how the services could have been actually delivered. And so that's it. So something, this way of working together beside the specific result was also a novelty for the company. So this way of co-designing inside the company was a new practice that was repeated again in other projects. So we are also happy for these outcomes. That was a kind of new way of working within this big entity. So if you like to know more, we have a number of books published. This is in particular tell the story of Cittadini Creativi. This tells several stories combined. This is a pretty old but always used book on service design, in which also co-design is discussed as part of this discipline. And this is the last one that we just issued, that is about the story of Reggio Emilia, and so the co-design process that we organized there. So thank you very much. I hope it was not too boring. And
Thank you, Anna.
Here for your questions.
Thank you. No, it was absolutely not boring and actually very interesting. So welcome. I see also Julia has joined us. Julia, sorry to hear you're sick with COVID. Hope it gets better soon. Thanks for joining anyhow.
Thank you for your wishes. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Julia. So thank you, Anna. That was really inspiring. And I see Sergio has already hands raised. So go ahead, Sergio, please.
Thank you. And thank you, Anna, for your interesting presentation. As I've seen, you have been adapting the process of co-design in the different projects. So you have been refining, the different phases of the process. What I feel it's very challenging is the preliminary phase, the first phase of a co-design project, even though I don't have much expertise on it. But I guess you aim to create like a shared vision among all stakeholders, all participants, and to give a focus on the topic, to discover that preliminary phase of discovery and until the defining of what you're gonna work for. And since stakeholders, citizens, etc., they might have different cultures, different backgrounds, my question is, how do you approach this preliminary phase to get everyone on board and try to get a common view on what you want to do with that project? So how do you plan that preliminary phase? Which tools do you use? And how do you adapt them depending on the actors involved? Thank you very much.
Wow, super question. Thank you, Sergio. In fact, of course, this change from time to time, depending on who you feel like you will have in front. Let's say that let me quote a case that you have seen and some other that you might not have seen. If you remember the images of the market in which we had the stall with the code for the co-design, for the case of the food box, we actually made it. So we made that kind of fake food box that was not supposed to be the final one, but was useful for the people to immediately get into the topic. So to understand what was about, everybody was asking, so what is this? Can we buy this? No, this is just a sample of what you might have at home. So it was very physical, very clear. So the idea is at that point was we had people in a market. So people that were passing by very quickly, and so we could not explain much more, but the explanation should have been very visual. And so it was. And so also the interaction was thought to be quick. Would you like this? Okay, with what inside? And so we took notes. And so it was really immediate. And that is the citizens. So people passing by there were citizens, were not necessarily experts or farmers or producers. They were the visitors of the market. So it was extremely evident, the topic of discussion. For Reggio Emilia, so for the huge park, instead we had, by decision of the public administration, we had around the table only stakeholders, very diverse, from the theater director to the cooperative director, all in between. Reggio Emilia is a very well-known city in Italy for participation, activism, whatever. And so in a way, all the people around the table were already familiar with the topic, the issue. And so we could start the conversation from a higher level of understanding of the issue. And so that's why we produced the cards that you have seen. Each card was a seed of an idea, was an input that, according to their experience of the place, they could select and use to create the specific vision that they wanted to discuss with the others. I did not enter into the details of the process, but the cards were food for thought for experts, so for people that were already aware of the situation. And so the conversation was set on that level because we knew we had at the table the stakeholders. Finally, for the project that Marzia mentioned, but I did not show because it was a huge simulacra, instead we had around the table citizens talking about the future of research and innovation, something really far from their everyday life, because we were talking about innovation in the programs of the European Commission in Horizon, and people barely know what is innovation, that there is a European Commission, that there is a program that it is called Horizon. So at that point, we said, okay, first of all, we made a careful selection of the participants because we decided a number of guidelines. It was not only in Italy. This project was run in 30 countries across Europe using the same methodology. So the process was very much standardized. Otherwise, it would have been impossible to have comparable results. And so the decision was to create a warm-up session in each workshop to make people familiar, not at all with the research priorities of a European Commission, but with their feeling of the future, for the future. So what they wanted to see in place in 10 years, in 5 years, in 20 years. So we skip completely all the technical part of explaining what is a research program and blah, 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 because it would have been completely out of scope and would have been confusing. So it's a tactic that you decide every time, and of course there is no a recipe that fits all needs. That's why I truly believe in the relevance of experts. By the way, I forgot between the different book, I forgot to put the one that collect all the cases that now I'm putting in the chat because it's also free access. So I forgot to put it. So if I don't know if I answered, but it should be looking at each specific
so you need a tailored approach for every single project. For example, the case of the food box, you used a prototype and it was quite obvious because it was very focused what you want to achieve. But in projects that you have like a more broad topic, those are the ones that are maybe a bit more difficult, right, to approach. But yeah, you gave a perfect answer.
But the problem is that sometimes you don't have to put the whole stuff on the table. This is also part of the issue. So it's sometimes you have to, when you start a co-design activity, first you have to ask yourself, okay, what do I want to understand? What do I want to achieve? And so you frame your limits also, the boundaries of what you do. And that's really crucial, because otherwise you got lost into details that might be also an essential for the activity, or the risk is that you get people lost into something that they don't understand. So scoping whatever activity is really an issue, is really important. And it's something that you do normally together with the client, or let's say who commissioned the work, let's say.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you, welcome. So I put on the chat this book, which is also free of access. I forgot to put it in the presentation, but maybe before sending the presentation, I will add it somehow.
Thank you, Anna.
But let's say that I enjoy very much this approach, this way of working, and it's a long story, as you can see. But the more you do it, the more you learn to consider the competence of the professionals. So, I mean, there are a lot of co-design activities done professionally, but in a very naive way, if I can say, that at the end of the day do not bring to any outcome, because you get lost in conversations about the future, about the wish of the people, and we all at the end of the day would like love and peace. And so you never get out with something. So I don't want to talk about love and peace in a co-design session. I want to talk about a future which is more achievable, concrete, and that's why I need to set the direction. I need to present an option to see your reaction. This reaction might also be negative. Good. So I know that you have a certain reaction to this vision, to this opportunity. Otherwise, the more when you work with citizens, you get into conversation which are pointless, absolutely pointless. I don't know, guys, in your experience, in my experience, I'm sometimes happened. And it also by mistake, it also by mistake.
That's any, yes, Angela.
Hi, Anna, good morning. I was late at the very beginning, so good morning. Thanks a lot for this wonderful presentation, very inspiring. I see a lot of commonalities, of course, with what we have done in Lombardy in terms of deliberation. Of course, deliberation processes are very similar. The techniques and the competencies at the basis of the running of the processes, these processes are different, but yeah, at the same time, the idea, the objectives is to come up with concrete recommendation, concrete things to be implemented in a territory, in some policies, but the idea is to not getting lost in conversation, but really get emerging something that is useful for the local authority, for citizens, for the community. Since in deliberation, a relevant part is the final part in which you bring all the results, you make something, the regional authority or the local national authority use these results in doing something, a policy, an initiative, whatever. And there is a really important phase, which is presenting to the citizens involved and in general to all the citizens how the results have been used by the local authority. I'm curious to know if in your process there is also this phase and how, if you have some mechanism to present to the citizens or the stakeholders involved the results and the usage of the results, thanks to their time, creativity, ideas, whatever.
Of course, this is crucial. What is really disturbing people is that is when you consult them and then they don't know anything about what happened. So providing feedbacks and updating people on what has been done is crucial. Of course, sometimes the timing of the things are so long that it cannot be done as such. If I think about Reggio Emilia, for instance, when you talk about territorial transformations, it may take 5 years. So in a way, what we have done for Reggio Emilia was at the end of the process until the architect was identified and we worked together on the layout. We updated the citizens. So we organized together with the mayor an open public presentation. And so we said, okay, now we start with this. It was 2019. So then it was a little bit crazy, the situation, as we all know. But we came to that point. now, a couple of weeks ago, in fact, we went there to see how the work is proceeding, and now they want to open, and in the next first part of the park, they want to open it in the next springtime, 2023. So by 2023, we will report back what has been done, and we will open up the conversation for the future that will be instead about, okay, let's make things happening beside the design, the physical transformation of the space. So this is the point. This is once again, I don't have one only answer, but that's for sure crucial to report back. Otherwise, you get people detached, you get people disillusioned, you get people yes, disturbed by this attitude. Even if you have used their contribution, even more if you have used it, you need to do it. And of course, this may take ages sometimes, but I don't have a.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure it was the best answer, but again, sometimes it may vary very much from time to time. So.
Yeah, it depends on the process and the results. Sure.
At least you have to send an email to those that participated to update about what happened. At least that minimum.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, this is something we have been also discussing a lot within Transformer. Of course, we have the regional government involved, so that's quite a commitment already. But yeah, the follow-up of the citizen engagement activities is definitely an important point. Are there any other questions or comments? Sorry. I was, no, go ahead, Anna.
No, I don't get offended. 1 hour of attention online is already a gift. So I thank you for this interest, and don't worry. We will have other opportunities to
I just had a very general question, and I was really interested to see the examples you showed, and I was trying to imagine, as you can imagine, I was already trying to imagine how they could work also in processes that we are running. Do you think, in your view, well, we could see how they can be used in different contexts. Do you think, in your view, there is, let's say, either like an ideal situation where this process can be used? Do you think there is an ideal framework where you think it works well? Or do you think it is flexible enough to be used in a very broad, sometimes like the citizen engagement activities, if you look already inside Transform, there is such a huge variety. So do you, yeah, I know it's a bit of a very broad question, but do you, in your view, does it adapt well to, I mean, of course, fitting with the objectives and the whole situation, but do you see it as adaptable to different frameworks, or do you think there is like a framework where it works better? I don't know if my question makes sense.
I absolutely, I got the point. I think I don't know for you guys, but we are almost used to work in this Western context in which we all live into democratic systems. And so one way or another, we all feel like we are entitled to give our voice, to make our voice be heard somehow. And so as far as you have this context, it's a cultural situation where you can apply. Of course, you have to find a way, but if you work in other contexts, I'm not talking about issues with democracy, but more rooted cultural issues. You see that people are less, let's say, open to do this because of cultural issue. I want to give you a case. It's not it could be a little bit stereotype, but not that much, that some countries in the Far East are less accustomed to speak in public. They feel like they are part of big social or entrepreneurial hierarchies. And so they don't feel like they are really entitled to talk. And this is something that happens also here in companies. The companies which have a very huge, a very deep hierarchy and pyramid of roles, they are the one in which organizing co-design with different levels of this pyramid could be critical, and you have to pay attention to that because people don't want to expose themselves to critiques or whatever. But anyway, a nice trick to work in these cases, so let me say in Korea or in companies with a strong hierarchical organization, is to ask people to pretend to be those which are not. So ask you to personify a character which is close to you, to what you actually are and what you actually do, but it's not you. So I ask you to step into the shoes of this and that. And so this, in a way, release your freedom. So you are not you. So you are not talking to your boss. You are talking to a character that might be your boss. So this is a way, also is a little trick that can help when you are in situation where there are these kind of barriers to personal expression, let's say, which can be either cultural, political, whatever. I don't know if this was a question, but this is something that we discovered, and it is not only us. There are studies, in particular from the Far East, which explore all these cultural barriers to participation, and some of them are really interesting ways.
Yeah, I would be particularly curious to know more about the experience with the private company, but we might have another time to talk more about this.
I just had a session 1 month ago with a department of a European Commission that I will never mention, about designing the future of their job, and it was an experience. Very positive.
We will stop the recording for this part. Okay.
No, it was very positive, but it was in fact this kind of issues we had some.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. Yeah. Okay, we are really good with the timing. Is there any one last comment or question, anyone, that you want to take advantage of the last 3 minutes with Anna?
Anyway, see you soon in Milan, right?
Exactly, yes. Otherwise, thank you very much for participating. And I hope all your travel arrangements are done. And yeah,
I'm here, so I will.
Yes, for you it's easy. So thank you very much, everyone, and have a nice rest of the day, and see you soon.
Ciao.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye.